back in the beehive today. I a little bit sweaty, you know, in a moment of possible insanity. I decided, since it was a momentous birthday for me this year, I actually will qualify for Medicare. I decided to sign up for a half marathon, and the day after my birthday in the fall. So I started training today, what I call training. Now, when I ran a full marathon, I had the blessing of being coached by a coworker of mine who was a long distance runner, and she was so kind, who just took this pudgy little friend and ran with her every week, encouraging her. And so when I ran that marathon, I felt on top of the world. So that's why I'm all sweaty. But now I am back in the beehive, and I have decided to finish up a project that's been on the back burner. This is what happens when if you have a moment of disorganization. This is what happens. I cannot find the book that goes to this. I do know how I want to finish it, so it doesn't matter that I don't have the book. But I want to find that book someplace, because it's a Jen Kingwell book, and she signed it. You know, I hope I didn't leave it, because I took the class over a year ago, so I hope I didn't leave it over in the classroom, but I can't find it. But I found all the pieces in the fabric, because I had it all set aside, and I've gone through my whole bookcase. I'm babbling, I know, so on with it. The thing about Jen Kingwell, she's from Australia, and she hand pieces a majority of her quilts. Now, she has come up with some machine piecing quilts because of the demand. There aren't a whole lot of people that want a hand piece, but you would be surprised, because she's so popular, and her designs are just extraordinary. So just Google Jen Kingwell if you've never seen her stuff. And I am signed up for a workshop with her. She's going to be here in Sisters, Oregon in May. So I've signed up for a 2-day workshop, and I've decided to do my small world quilt with her. It's a wall hanging, and it's just, she has this incredible way of just putting a gazillion fabrics together into an extraordinary quilt. Since she lives in Australia, she's on a plane a lot, and she hand pieces a lot. And so when I took my last class from her, I decided I really wanted to learn from her. And what I found out is that hand piecing is not hard. And it's a great travel project, and you know, we're always traveling, and the thing about hand piecing is that you can make your pieces go together. You know, you can ease them in to go together. And so I decided to start out in that first project with making a pillow for the beehive, or my bedroom maybe. But I wanted to do a clamshell quilt. So I decided to do a variety of fabrics. These are fun fabrics that I have that I do all my French things with. And I hand pieced them. So that means that when I trace my pieces, like this is a traced piece, I have made a template. Thank goodness I have the templates, because I do not know where the book is. But I made my templates out of Mylar, and these are the exact finish size. So when I laid the template on my fabric, I gave it a 1/4 inch seam. I traced around the template and then cut a 1/4 inch more. so that my piece is bigger than the template. I don't know if you can see that, but trust me. And then I know how I'm going to do this. So this is a little hand piecing tutorial. So now I have that, that's the top of the clamshell. So I'm going to just fold that in half, and I'm going to just finger press it right where the halfway point would be. And then I gotta find those glasses. Oh, they're way over there. Woo! The world looks so much brighter. I'm starting to cool off, even though it was raining outside. So my second piece, the clamshell, is made up of 3 pieces. And every so often on this particular pattern, it also had a solid piece where you could just cut out a solid piece of fabric, so I did that. And now it's just a matter of laying my clamshells out before I attach them together. So now I'm going to attach the second row, if you'd call this a row, to the first one. So I'm going to fold this in half and finger press a little crease there so I know where the center of this one is. And then hopefully you can see this. I'm going to match up those creases, and I'm going to pin that center. Don't you just love my little pin cushion? This is hysterical. It's pottery. I got it at the Stitch and Post. It's a little fox, and he's got a big belly filled with pins. He must have eaten a porcupine. So, but if you want one of these, you have to call up the Stitch and Post, because I don't think these are on their website. And they have all kinds of animals, little bears, you know, all kinds of little animals. So I have pinned the center to the center, and now I'm just going to ease that edge till I get to the end, and I'm going to pin it. And it's going to look kind of funny when it's pinned. And you just kind of ease this around. That's why it's always going to match. So I'm going to bring this around. And that little dog ear is going to hang over a little bit. This is like one of those things where you see people and their tongues hanging out, trying to get it so right. So then I think I'll start at the end, knowing that I have to hang that little dog ear over to get the corner to match up. And then the frogs are back. The frogs are back in the creek. It's like when Sisters reaches a certain temperature in the spring, the frogs, I mean, there's a gazillion of them out there, and at night it's like this fabulous white noise of croaking love. They just want their girlfriend, and they're singing their song. And then come July 15th, you don't hear another sound. They've packed up the family and they moved on. So I'm easing that in. I'm babbling because this is kind of a boring spot. So I'm easing that in, and I've pinned the edge to edge. And then you get your needle and thread, and you do a running stitch, a tiny, tiny running stitch along the pencil line that you made for the 1/4 inch seam. Now when you see Jan's quilts and you realize that a majority of hers, she did not machine quilt them. Like, let me go get, it's My Small World, because it's all ready to go. So I'm all ready to go. Oops, someone's talking to me. Her quilt, My Small World, can you believe that? And I've been collecting all these little fabrics to do this with, because what you need is a bazillion little pieces. Hers is all hand pieced. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Hand pieced, and you're kind of glad that it's hand pieced because the blocks are so tiny. Oh, Joanne's just wants to tell me there's a sale. So, hand piecing, you can make the most intricate little blocks. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a running stitch. As you stitch, you're constantly easing in that curve, and you are making sure that your edges are nice and snugged, lining up so that you don't take more or less of a 1/4 inch seam. And then when you get to the end, you kind of back stitch and then knot off in the way that you would like. And then when you turn it over, you see you have this perfect little piece that is attached to the other one. So now the next part of this, I don't clip any of these. The curve is small enough on these clamshells, is gentle enough, I should say, that you don't have to clip like you did if you ever made clothing and with a sleeve they told you to clip or something. You don't have to do that really with these. But this is the next best thing for this, and this is called Flatter, and I've talked about this before. It's by the Soak Company. It is an organic water and different compounds that this isn't a starch. It doesn't leave a residue on there. It actually relaxes the threads, and so you can see that all I did was spray a little bit of that soak on here, and it's nice and tight. So I like to use this soak almost more than I like to use starch, the Flatter rather. And you can get it, I got mine at the Stitch and Post. They sell it. And it comes in unscented or scented, and you decide according to how you're going to do it. So next will be, I want to go ahead and press this down before I add that third little piece at the bottom. So I'm going to give this just a little spritz. I'll finger press it a little bit down. See how nice that looks. And then all I'm going to do is to kind of press it. My irons, I had my iron off, so it's not quite. Yeah, that's going to look really nice. So I have my dog ears about 1/4 inch hanging over. And then, let's see if my iron's heated up yet. Yeah. Oh, that's so pretty. So now I'm ready to put that final one on the bottom. I'm going to finger press where the center of that next segment goes. There's my center, and then I'm going to finger press my last piece. And then I'm going to match that up. This one is a little bit tighter because it's a smaller curve, but it's easing in nice and easy. That's the thing about hand piecing, is that you can ease things in. Okay, now I'm ready to stitch that last one. I think I need new thread. I put my needle threader someplace. So, someone asked me for a quilter's knot. Got my needle, pointing the Sharpie point, the pointy point, to the end of the thread. I grab it between my 2 fingers, and I just wrap that thread around the needle like 3 times. Then I grab those wraps, and I pull my needle and push those wraps down the thread, and it knots at the end. That's what's called a quilter's knot. Now when you start your stitch, Jan always says stitch back 1 stitch, kind of lock your end into place, kind of like when you're machine piecing and you back stitch to get it to, not unravel. Now you would say, why in the world would one hand piece when you got a machine? And all I can say is there is something very peaceful about hand stitching, hand piecing. Now I wouldn't want to hand piece every quilt, but there's, whether you do hexies or hand quilting or hand piecing, it all is a very, very meditative process, and there's something, it's kind of like hand applique. There's something, it's a whole different look and a whole different feel. Now, those people out there who've done Dear Jane, oh my gosh, that's, that is a that's like a big meditation. So I'm constantly, while I'm doing this, making sure that my raw edges are lined up. And I'm just doing a tiny, tiny running stitch. Okay, now here's a brain fart. I stitched the whole piece to the little piece, so now I have to rip it out. See, luckily, we're just a few seams away, so, but it's kind of like when you don't catch the back of the quilt when you're putting a binding on, or you do catch the back of the quilt, and I gotta pay attention to keep everything out of the way. As they say, learn by my mistakes. Oh, I got one more that I had to take. There we go. Okay. Keep that out of the way. The two things that you have to pay attention to are not to pull the thread so you end up gathering the piece. You're not making a ruffle. You want it to be smooth and lay flat. And the other thing is to back stitch a couple stitches when you get to either end, as you're doing either end, to kind of lock it into place. Okay. Got a little bit of a pucker there. What did I do there? Oh, I missed a little stitch, so I'm gonna go back and make sure that's locked down where it looked like I took too big of a running stitch. I'm just going to go back and fix it. Okay, now we're going to press. So I wanted to show you there, the three pieces are hand stitched together, and then they will go, as I make each clamshell, I'm laying it out on my big board next to me because I'm piecing them in my sewing chair, and so I can see how I want the color placement to go. And I just need a few more before I'll have enough for my pillow top. And then I will stitch them together in kind of diagonal rows. And then I'm going to put SF101 on the back as kind of a support, and probably fuse a piece of batting to the back of that and quilt it before I make it into a pillow. So we will come back here when I decide to stitch the rows together, so I can show you how I'm doing that. But pretty much all the clamshells are being stitched in this way. And if I find that book, gosh darn it, I will show it to you. But I remember how I did this from the class, thank goodness. So, see you the next time around. Good morning. Well, I found the book. I am extremely happy. it took me, I found it in a roundabout way because I couldn't remember the name of the book or what it looked like. I just know I had the book, and it was signed to me by Jen Kingwell, so I knew that I would have not gotten rid of that book. And plus I love all of her stuff, and I wanted to make more of her quilts. But I was kind of stumped on how many of these clamshells I needed to make to finish this pillow. And so I Googled it and went on image search, saw the cover of the book, and then I said, I'm going to go back. Of course, I've looked in my bookcase 5 times for this book, but since I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, you know. So now that I had the name of the book, I went back in my bookcase, and there it was, which is unusual for me. I usually keep the pattern or the book with the UFO so that I don't have to spend all this craziness to try to find it. But this is the book, Quilt Lovely. And I just, there are so many quilts in here that I just love. A lot of them are hand pieced, but there are some machine piecing. She uses templates. She does sell acrylic templates to make a lot of her quilts. I had Mylar, so I had it cut out because there is a pattern with the book on cutting the Mylar templates. And so I had all my templates, but I really couldn't figure out, I was trying to figure out, now how does this fit? So it was so great to find the book because there's the pillow in the book, if you can see that. And so I was able to count how many clamshells I needed. And it turned out that I had enough clamshells already constructed that I just needed 3 more, which is great. And then I wasn't sure how the top was to be finished, the top edge, but I knew that this little template I had cut out fit there. So having the book and the pattern in front of you is, well, it goes without saying, so important. And since this is a hand piecing project, I will be working on this for a few days. I am thinking that in another week we are leaving on a short camping trip. We're going to hang out with some friends up at a hot springs, but you know me, I'm not going camping without some stitching, and this seems like it might be the perfect thing to take along for a short trip because it's all handwork. The thing I'm going to do to make it easier for myself is to take a photograph, because I have been moving my clamshells around, and what I do is when I think I have them laid out in the way that I want, I take a photograph with my phone and look at it, because there's something about that photograph that you see the value, the tone, and the color distribution, and then I'll move things around. So I think I have it so far pretty much set until I make the next 3 clamshells, and those will be the final 3, and then I'll cut the top little piece like this that goes on the top. Take a picture, take a look at my distribution, and then I'll use that picture as a template, because I am going to have to pick these all up, put them in a baggie, and take them with me. And I do that when I'm here in the beehive. When I'm using my design wall, I'll hang my blocks up, take a photograph, and look at it, because it pops like that. Whatever is the wrong, you have too much on one side or not enough on the other, it just shows up in a photograph. So that's my plan. So wish me luck. and we'll see you up at the campground.